I'm Matthew Woods, host of Leading Out of the Woods, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you are listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hey, welcome back. Steve here, and today I'm talking with Dell H. Smith. Dell was an international marketing consultant, and upon retirement, he focused on using reason to discover life's purpose. Join us as we talk about his book, Discovering Life's Purpose, Reexamining the Club. Oh, you're going to be thinking, if you haven't thought about this topic, you're going to think today. It's going to get you, get those fires going upstairs. Thanks for listening. And by the way, before you go, it'd be so cool if you went to my website, stephenmiletto.com, and you could go to the review section and you could leave a review right there. Say something nice, maybe. That would be awesome. You could also check out my blog and check out other videos, as well as check out the different podcasts that are there. It'd be so cool if you did that. And by the way, you could also subscribe, become one of my email followers. And from time to time, I'll send out an email just talking about different topics within education. So hope you're doing well, and thanks so much for listening. You are awesome. Enjoy the show.
It's the Education Podcast, your favorite show, with lots of groovy guests and they share what they know. So crank it up to 10 and let your neighbors know that here's another show with Dr. Steve Miletto. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12. With Dr. Steve Miletto.
Dell H. Smith was an international marketing consultant. His clients included IBM, Microsoft, Dell Computers, Hewlett Packard, and many other global companies. He has developed financial and sales process methodologies that have been adopted in over a dozen countries. Upon retirement, he directed his business experience to the development of reason-based thought processes in pursuit of establishing one's life purpose. He is the author of an inspiring book, Discovering Life's Purpose, Reexamining the Club. Also, he is the developer of an experiential learning methodology that applies one's unique life experience to their reason-based thinking. Dell has devoted 2 decades of research into discovering the purpose of life. His research includes the study of philosophy and participation in religious retreats. His research is fueled by extensive reading of books by atheists, spiritualists, and religious apologists. His personal pursuit of life's purpose ran the gamut from atheist to unfulfilled convert to fervent Christian. His journey involved a critical examination of the club, the multi-denominational Christian church. Smith has developed a video channel entitled The Meaning of Life video series, as well as a blog. Dell's family includes his 3 children, their late mother, his 3 grandchildren, and his wife, Marcel. He lives in Markham, Ontario, Canada. Our focus will be Dell's book, Discovering Life's Purpose, Reexamining the Club. Dell, thanks for joining me today, and say hi to everyone.
Well, hello to your audience, and it's nice. Thanks for the opportunity of meeting with them.
Well, I'm glad to have you here, and let's start with something that you have that you've said. I read this, something that you said. Most of us are so busy putting one foot in front of the other that we seldom look up and see where we are going. Can you explain this just a little bit further? What are you talking about?
Yeah, what I mean is that our lives are extremely demanding. The days never seem long enough. There's so much to do. There's so many things that distract our attention from really, where are we going? Why are we here? What happens when we die? What are we supposed to do? And those questions, they just don't go away. You can put them aside, as most people do, and as I did, as long as I was working. I didn't have time for looking at life's purpose when I was working. I wish I had, because I would have been a better person and a better father if I'd given it more thought. But I think most people have that same problem. Their lives are too busy to really sit back and say, what's my purpose here? What am I here for?
I think that's so right. And just a note, the idea that we don't stop and think about it is because I think we keep ourselves so busy that we really don't want to, do we really want to ask those questions? I mean, you're talking to someone who this last year, I had a tumor removed from my brain. and
Wow.
and I'm it just celebrated my 1 year anniversary of this February 1st of the surgery, and I just had my 1 year meeting with one of the surgeons. I got a next one coming up, but the first one, looking at the MRI and explaining to me why he's saying that it all looks good and it's looking like it should, and which is awesome. So, there's
yeah, congratulations. That's a very scary thing. I mean, I think the brain, we don't like people messing with our brain.
You got that right. And it's one of those things where I didn't thought about it much. Once they started explaining exactly what it was all about, I started going, wow. But at the same time, I was trying to avoid even thinking about it, because afterwards, that's when all the thinking came, because it's like, wow. And so I say that because it really makes you stop and go, because at one time I'm getting help to walk, and I'm getting help to be able to make it even to the end of my driveway and stuff like that. And that's far behind me, and it's nice, but although it made you think, all the stuff you're talking about is like, what am I here for? What am I doing? And is there more? Is it, what's, all the questions you just asked. I mean, what should I be doing, I guess? And so I got to say this, and, one of the things that you talk about is this. I mean, why do you think we need meaning in our lives? I mean, why is it important?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess my simple answer would be, as far as we know, life has no do-overs. We get one chance. We get a few decades to live the best life we can live, and so that's one reason. The second reason is most of what we direct our lives to, and it's good that we do, like raising a family, making ends meet, to being a good citizen, you know what I mean? The goals we set for ourselves. But is there more to it? And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, hey, our Creator created us. And some people don't believe there's a creator. And so in the book, we address that issue as well as in the video channel. But assuming that you accept that you were created, must you not have been created for a purpose? And must that purpose not trump any purpose we could come up with? And that's why I call it discovering life's purpose. I believe that, and my research establishes that our Creator has a purpose for our lives, and that's the one we fail to pursue at our peril.
Oh, it makes sense. I mean, it's I read your words, and really, and with my own life event, it's one of those things that really, it put the brakes on everything and said to me, "What are you doing?" All right.
Well, that makes sense, and maybe that was the good thing.
Oh, I think
maybe
right.
Most people need something like that, scary as it is.
I think you're right, and like you've said, your book, Discovering Life's Purpose, Reexamining the Club, is about finding your purpose. I mean, what was it that made you make this a goal or a direction that you decided to follow after you retired from the corporate world? I mean, why'd you go, I got to do this?
Yeah. And by that, you mean write the book, do the
Correct.
research and write the book, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So what happened? It just, I was continually dissatisfied. And dissatisfaction is a good motivator to do something about it. I was dissatisfied with the atheism that I practiced in my 20s. That, atheism doesn't make sense if you examine and I've examined a lot of them, very prominent atheists, and their arguments all boil down to about a dozen and a half. And in the book, in chapter, I believe it is chapter 12, we examine all those arguments, and it turns out that, well, certainly for me, I conclude they are refuted. They don't make sense. But at the time, but they're very persuasive, and they're generally promoted by people who are very intelligent, and therefore it's hard to discount them. But because it didn't make sense to me, atheism was a dissatisfaction. I met my roommate in university was a cradle Roman Catholic, and the woman I fell in love with at first sight was a cradle Roman Catholic. So that made me think, gee, if they're wrong and I'm right that atheism's true, and then nobody's got a problem. But if they're right about the purpose of their lives as they saw it and based on religious teaching, if they're right and I'm wrong, boys, I'm on thin ice. So what happened was I examined the Roman Catholic Church, and I was a skeptic because their teachings are dogmatic, as you know, and there's no substantiation for them. You know, you're told to believe it. And I guess if you grew up as a cradle Catholic, that's not so difficult. But as a convert, it was very difficult because I could not accept, I couldn't drive my life based on unsubstantiated teachings. So that dissatisfaction led me in to say, hey, I got to do something about this. And fortunately, I was introduced to philosophy and the idea of the practice of formal reasoning. And that turned the corner. It turned the corner that I now could, with sound thinking, know as well as I know anything what the purpose of life is. And that's what we deal with in chapter 13 of the book. So now I thought, I want to explore these ideas with as many people as I can find who are willing. And what turned out is almost no one's willing. They're not willing because they feel this subject of life's purpose is theirs. It's personal. Nobody else's business. And they also feel that if they allow a discussion to get into that area, then they're going to have to defend what their position is. And in many cases, they're not that competent, not competent, they're not that confident in their position. And so it's embarrassing. So the net is, I couldn't find anybody to talk to. So I thought if I want to share ideas, maybe if I put my ideas in a book and invite commentary, they can read that in private and they don't have to respond right away and they don't have to defend their position. And so I felt it was a necessary way of enriching my understanding of life's purpose to be able to get at ideas and share them with others.
Excellent. It's and I can only imagine as you're reading and trying to figure out since you're talking about what you did believe and you're questioning those thoughts and you're starting to read and trying to figure out somebody to talk to about this, and these readings are either helping or I don't know if they were hindering, but at the same time making you wonder even more, I guess is where I'm going with that. The idea that, it's going to open some new doors here. New questions I need to ask. So what we keep mentioning is life's purpose. So before we go any further, let's talk about what you are specifically talking about when you say that, so that we're all on the same wavelength of thinking about what you think. When you say life's purpose, what do you mean?
Yeah. So what I mean is, what were we created to be? So our Creator created us, and thus must have wanted to and he must have had a purpose for us. And so then I started digging into, you see, what that purpose would be. And the reasoning that's in chapter 13 of the book takes person through the thought processes, the formal thought process that led me to my knowledge, as I say, as good as any knowledge we have. None of us have absolute knowledge, but knowledge based on formal reasoning is as sound as science, knowledge based on science. They both can be refuted by new evidence, but they're as good as it gets. That's the best knowledge we have. So that knowledge led me to say, okay, what is this creator? Yeah, we got a creator, but what's his relationship with us? And that's tough because it's pretty hard to reason a creator that you can't see, you don't really have any evidence of, and any involvement with. So I turned to creation. I said, maybe if I can know something about creation, because all of us procreate. So we have experience with creation, with the idea of the experience of creation. And what's that like? And what I concluded is that nobody creates a being and then rejects it. When we have a child, we want that child to love us, and we love that child about as selflessly as we're able. So inductive reasoning, which is part of the formal process, says if every evidence I can see and experience leads to the same conclusion, creators love their created. Until we can find an exception to that, then we can know all creators have that same experience. That's inductive reasoning. So it's very powerful reasoning because it deals with stuff that we cannot directly experience. So with that lengthy introduction, so the next part of it is nobody that we've ever seen creates with the idea of destroying their creation, and nobody creates with the idea that they're created predeceases them. No, that's the worst. That's probably the toughest experience people can have, is when a child predeceases them. And so using inductive reasoning again, until we find exception to that, we can know that all creators want their created to not predecease them. Now that's pretty powerful, because if our creator's eternal and we're not going to predecease them, then I guess we're going to be around for an eternity. So that type of reasoning, then you say, okay, what do creators, us, our procreators, what do we want from our children? And what we want for them is to love us like we love them, and to love their siblings, right? I can't think of any creator that says, no, I don't want my kids to do that. So that would mean then that all creators want what they create to love them and love all the other people they've created as selflessly and unconditionally as they're able. And since that's what our creator wants, since reasoning concludes that that's what our creator wants, then that's its purpose for us. And going back to what I said earlier, then its purpose trumps whatever we might come up with. So the net is, and there's an implication to that, because the implication is it's not just my purpose. You see, the creator didn't decide, hey, I want Dell to do this and I want Stephen to do this. He he wanted essentially us to love him and all his created as selflessly and unconditionally as we're able. So that means if you accept all that, which is a lot, big, awful, big meal to digest, if you accept all that, then it is everyone's purpose. It's not just my purpose. And that's a very controversial thing to say. But if you go through the rationale, it's pretty hard to see it any other way. So, and that's a pretty important purpose, especially if we're going to live for eternity. We better learn to love that creator, right?
Very much so.
Yeah. So does that kind of get at your question? It's an awful long answer. I hope it does.
No, it does. It does very much so. I mean, it's when we think about because when someone starts asking questions about when they stop to think about what's going on around them and why am I here? There's so much that goes into that because like some people, if you were to ask them, so what do you think your purpose is? They might say something like, well, I don't know, maybe just to do good, to not cause anybody harm, to be nice to people and maybe try and do my best. And what I wanted to kind of get into a little bit is why do you think that may not be, there might be more to it than just trying to do nice?
Yeah. Those are very important. And in fact, they're complementary to the creator's purpose, but they don't go far enough. Okay. We're trying to be good, but we need to love our creator more than we love anything else, anyone else. Right? That's what it means. Just like we want our kids to love us more than they love anyone else. So that's very demanding. And to love all of civilization, love all the people that were created is even more demanding because there's awful lot of unattractive and worse, evil people out there, which reason says we're supposed to love. And the interesting thing about that, about reasoning leading to that conclusion, is although religion doesn't have any substantiation, that reasoning provides a substantiation. Because as you know, just take one religion, Christianity. Christ taught that his first and second commandment, the greatest commandment, is love your creator with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. And he followed that up. Someone said, well, but who's my neighbor? And he said, everybody. So in other words, religion establishes the same purpose that reasoning established. And since the creator establishes with that purpose in mind, anything less than that is insufficient. It's complementary. If you're happy, if you're successful, if you're making people's lives better, if you're giving back to all those very worthy goals, earthly goals, are real important, but our earthly life is a few decades. And if it's true that our creator intends that we not predecease it, then we better get ready for a pretty long life, for an eternal life, and with the creator. And so that's why I would say worthy goals that we come up with are not quite enough. Well, in fact, they fall a bit short. And no, that doesn't mean we have to be perfect. We have to do it as selflessly and unconditionally as we're able. See, we have to do our best. And And the only way to know if you're doing your best is to try and do a little better. And it's kind of like one more rep. If your physical trainer's on your case, one more rep. And until you can't do one more rep, you know you haven't done your best. So similarly, when I'm trying to love my creator and all it's created as selflessly and unconditionally as I'm able, that's the only way I can know what I'm able to do. My creator knows what I'm able to do, but I can only know if I push myself to my limit. Once I hit that limit, okay, now I know I've done it as well as I'm able.
That's excellent. When we think about this, and I think a lot of times it's just that we don't, when you're thinking about your purpose and what you're doing, and I think it's easy just to explain it off by saying, well, I try to do good. But to really sit and think, and how could I do a step above that, or more than a step above that, or what does that look like, and am I really doing what I could be doing? I think there's so many facets to what you're talking about that it's something that anybody could take action on, because you could see what you could do to just step it up a little bit. So tell me about you were doing all this researching in philosophy and spirituality and religion. Is there anything that really stood out to you in your research? I mean, what just kind of popped out at you?
Well, the thing that hit me most, but like most of that research produces ideas, produces thinking, right? And it comes from reading, as you said in the introduction, the works of atheists and apologists and spiritualists and using reasoning, formal reasoning, as we've talked about, and re-examining religion. Like most people have, not most, but an increasing number of people have rejected religion for many reasons, and quite understandably. But the problem with rejecting religion is you're throwing the whole thing out. What you want to reject is all that religion gets wrong. And chapters 14 to 18 of the book treat that. What is religion getting wrong? Why is it so hard to accept? And it's because it is wrong, and obviously wrong about quite a few things that are outlined in the book. And so it's logical to kind of react against it and say, okay, I'm done with it, and not only just their teachings are bad, but their leaders are bad. Like they're doing all, and the whole religion is bad. Atrocities through the century. So but I'm just expanding a bit on why I understand why people reject religion. But the problem with rejecting something, religion has given more thought to life's purpose 2 millennia than any of us. So to throw out everything that they teach because you can't accept some of what they teach, it doesn't really, it isn't in your best interest. So that's one of the things that I found. But the other thing I found is that religion, spirituality, and reasoning all come to the same conclusion of life's purpose. And so that adds foundation to that position. It says, if you come at something 3 different ways and you come up with the same answer, is it not likely that you're onto something, that it may be the right answer? So that's what hit me. I didn't know that. I didn't know religion would reinforce reasoning, that spirituality would reinforce religion, that they would all come up with the same thing. And that's a pretty startling discovery.
Gotcha. I appreciate you sharing that, because now that's going to lead me up to asking you this question, which is, so what's your life purpose? I mean, how'd you figure it out? What do you think that your life purpose is all about now?
Yeah. So my life's purpose is what I concluded is my creator's purpose. for my life, and that is to love my Creator. That's an interesting thing to say that I must love my Creator. Why must I love? Why does my Creator need love? Why does my Creator need worship? He's tons more self-sufficient than I am. Has he got insecurity problems that he wants us to worship him? I don't think so. And maybe, just maybe, our Creator doesn't even want us to worship him. What he wants us is to love him. And he doesn't want that for him. He wants it for us. Because our Creator wants us to become one with him, is the way people say it. Become at one. Religion says, your spirit, God is in you and you are in God. Spirituality says the great power has universal consciousness, and it spreads that amongst all that it created. And it gave humans the unique ability to internalize, to take that universal consciousness into their individual consciousness. So they're all saying we need to be one with our Creator. And so that's how I came to the conclusion that is not only my purpose, but the purpose of all of us. And that's the idea I want to expose people to. Like, I don't want to tell people that. That's not my purpose. My purpose is to get them thinking about that. And as you mentioned in the introduction, experiential learning says spend time, a little bit of time, thinking about what you experienced. What did you read? What did you see on television? What did you find on the internet? What did you get from talking to other people? And what can you learn from that? And based on what you learn, what does that tell you about life's purpose? It's a continual search, and I'm still searching, by the way. Like it's only in the last 4 or 5 years that I've understood anything about spirituality. I just wrote it off. There's nothing to it, was my thinking. Of course, that's not very sound thinking. But there's a wonderful book about spirituality written by a scientist, and who establishes, it's referenced in the video channel on my website to find it, but it's really demonstrates that spirituality is real. And so that's how I came to that conclusion, is that it was reinforced by all 3 areas that I researched.
Gotcha. Very cool. Because I don't think you can go. I guess there are people who can go through the world and not think much about tomorrow or the future, or even how they experience their past and what the past and how it could have been improved, and then what who their Creator is, or even just getting to the whole comment about what my purpose is, and am I achieving it? Am I even approaching it? One of the things that I wanted to ask you is, what advice would you give to someone who has major questions that they want to answer or learn more about? I mean, what suggestions would you give them for finding those answers?
Well, I guess the main one would be, the main suggestion I would make. Most people don't have 2.5 decades to research what they need to know. They just don't. They may at some point when they retire, like I did, but most people don't. So what the book provides is the ideas that were produced by that research. And those ideas can be read in a couple of evenings read. It will take a lot more to digest those ideas and determine if they're ideas that are sound and make sense to you. But you can at least get exposed to those ideas. And once you do, the book also references much of that research. So it references places you can search, like the writings that you can search of other people's writings. So the simple answer is never stop. First of all, start, and then never stop searching. And you will find, Jesus said, ask and you will receive, seek and you will find, and it is true. You will learn a lot if you can summon up the perseverance to follow that search. That's the advice I would give. Is I would, it sounds a bit self-serving, but I do believe that book and the website are a good place to start, because you will find dozens and dozens of ideas that you may not have thought through. And now, seeing them, you now have the opportunity to do two things. To say, okay, which of those ideas make sense to me? And which of those ideas reinforce each other? In other words, if this idea leads to this conclusion, and this idea does as well, and this idea does, then those ideas are probably right. Right? So the problem with searching is that you end up with a ton of ideas. And so then that's how you call them. You call them by determining which ones make sense and which ones reinforce each other. And if you can follow that journey, I'm sure you won't have a difficulty with that search. I'm sure that you will discover life's purpose.
Awesome. Thank you. Because that's got to be something that's kind of, as I ask questions or as I am trying to find answers, am I going to get to where I can actually feel like I have an answer, or am I just going to come up with way more questions to ask?
Mm-hmm. That's right, and that's a fear, and that's what my experience dispels that fear. No, you won't. Yes, you will have a lot. The ideas you come up with will generate more questions, but that's not bad. That's the questions you pursue are what strengthen your knowledge. So it's and I think the other thing is, when you start, this can look like a just impossible project. How am I ever going to determine what my creator wants of me? But the thing that most tough projects, the toughest part of them is starting. And once you start to explore some ideas and see which ones make sense and reinforce each other, it's very encouraging. Hey, you think to yourself, hey, I'm getting somewhere. But in order to get all the way, never stop that searching. That's what my experience would indicate is pretty important.
Excellent. Thank you. One of the things that this has to bring me to ask about is, a lot of times we get bogged down in thoughts of despair, or the idea that this world's just not something that I want, or it's just the thought that I'm unfulfilled. I don't feel like I have the things or the thoughts or the direction that I should have. I mean, what suggestions would you have to give someone who's to take them from feeling like they're unfulfilled to living a full life of hope, one that's positive and looking at what the future brings?
I guess one way of answering that would be to internalize that all this stuff you're dealing with, all these things that discourage you, that attack you, that are unsatisfying, that create unanswered questions for you, all those things are part of a few decades of your existence. So they're not the most important things. Like try not to get bogged down in them. Try and realize what is the most important thing. What is your eternal life going to be? Can you conclude that what reasoning and religion and spirituality say is that you will become one with your Creator and you will live forever? If you can reach that conclusion, then it really doesn't too much matter. Like a few decades to our Creator is for us, is like a short afternoon for our Creator. You know, our Creator created us for an eternal life. And I don't know whether that helps or not. Like I despair. I despair of humanity. Like it is so screwed up. But also, you know, all the news, all the commentation deals with what's bad, because bad news sells, right? There's an awful lot of good. And if you look behind the obvious and find the good in people, in society, in countries, and you find that good, I think it can help you overcome those kind of feelings of despair that certainly aren't rare, and many people feel. I agree.
Oh, so much so. And I think it's just one of those things that sometimes people have to have the persistence to see around or get through the stuff that's sent out there by the news, or the stuff that's sent out there by whoever, that everything is bad message, I guess. You know, because there is some good out there. You guess you got to find that focus. So, Dell, we're finishing up. If someone wanted to follow up and connect with you or learn more, where would you send them?
Well, I would suggest that if they want to learn more, pursue the wealth of ideas that are delivered to them in the book and on the website. The idea of the website is a lot of people don't want to read a book, especially younger people. They've seen YouTubes, they've seen TV where, you know, scenes change in a sub-second. You know, they want something that nets it out. And so the video channel provides, like, it's got 30 videos in it, in the channel. And each of them delivers one of the ideas that would be good for them to consider and to think through. And so that's on the website, that video channel. And the website is dellhsmith.com, H being my middle initial. So it's just simply my name.com. But the second thing is that it has a blog, which has, you know, 2 or 3 dozen 600-word or less essays on an idea. So those are the things that you can, you know, they're small bites, they're 5-minute bites that can help you learn a little bit more. And then the final thing I would say is I would welcome, as I said initially, it's hard to find people that will share ideas about, so I would just welcome with all my heart anybody to the website. Has a place to contact me on it, but I just like to have a texture or an email, And again, my email is Dell Smith without the initial, just Dell Smith, DELSMITH, at Rogers, a plural provider, Rogers.com. So Dell Smith at Rogers.com. And please, if you're at all curious and if there's anything you want to explore, you're going to have my full attention. I can assure you of that.
Well, excellent. I'll put that information in the show notes so they can easily find it. And just to verify, when you say Dell Smith at Rogers.com, is it Rogers with a D or Rogers without a D?
Without a D. Thank you for that clarification. That's it.
You're welcome. Last two questions that I like to ask my guests. And the first one goes like this. How do you keep going when so much is going on that you may want to quit?
That's how do you keep going? It's one way of looking at it is what choice do you have?
Nice.
Life's going to go on whether you're on board or not, and and reflect on the idea that life has no do-overs. Like, this is your chance. Like, every day is your chance. And then finally, don't get discouraged, as we talked about earlier. If you make one small difference in either your thinking or someone else's life, you've done a marvelous thing. So I would say, I think those two things, like, you only get one shot and you are making a difference. So take satisfaction in that, feel rewarded in that, and then maybe you can overcome the feeling, the overwhelming feeling, hey, it's too much. Let me out. I quit.
Excellent. Love it. Last question for you. Do you have a teacher in your past who made a difference in your life? If so, who was it? What would you say if given a chance to say thank you?
Well, probably the teacher that made the biggest impact on my life was a very interesting guy. He was a mathematics teacher in high school. And the difference he made is he showed me that nothing need stop me. He gave me tremendous confidence, and the way he did it was really quite unique. Like, he was gruff. Like, he scared most of his pupils into learning. And he had some excellent techniques. So the last 5 people that came into this classroom had to go up to the board and write on their board their answer to one of the questions of the homework. And of course, most of them hadn't even done the homework, much less be proud of what they'd come up with.
Nice.
So while they were struggling with that, he would go down a list of questions like, okay, what's this? What's this? And he'd go down one row and back up the other, and you knew he was going to hit you. It was coming. So he started paying attention. The third thing that he would do is he had no patience for someone that didn't try, but he would give his full attention to anyone that did. And he would welcome them to come in after the end of the school day, and he would spend individual time with them and help them. And he did. And once a person experienced that someone believed in them and that cared and that they could do better, that had a huge impact. Like, I probably built an awful ego in me that I know the more I try, the more I will accomplish. And that, of course, is true of everyone.
Awesome. I love it. Dell, thanks so much for talking with me today. Discovering Life's Purpose, Reexamining the Club is a book that will cause you to question and think about your world. Wishing you the best in all you do.
Well, thank you. And I wish you a good search, and I wish all your listeners that same excellent search for discovering life's purpose.
Hey, you have been listening to Teaching Learning Leading K12, a podcast to help you help kids achieve their dreams. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is a member of the Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is a member of the podcast network based in Canada called Voice Ed Radio. Voice Ed Radio, your voice is right here. The opinions expressed on Teaching Learning Leading K12 are those of the guests and host. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is intended to share ideas, advice, and suggestions. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is produced for educational purposes. Hey, thanks for listening. It would be awesome if you visited my website at stephenmiletto.com and connected with me, left a review, and listened to more episodes. And by the way, you could also share it with your friends, with your family, and your colleagues. Thanks so much. You're awesome.